Welcome back, folks. I've gravitated towards my favourite Donny Gaul. Seems like I can't stay away from this place at the moment, and you can see why. I'm heading out to Switchgear Cliffs, where I'll tell you a little bit about them, but really the video is all about this bike. I've had it for 3 months now, and I aim to bring you in this short video the good, the bad and the ugly. The ugly is fairly self-explanatory to a lot of you, but we'll get into that during the course of this video. Anyway, I'm going to soak up this scenery for the moment, and needless to say, you're very welcome aboard. Welcome to the Switchgear Cliffs in Gaul. I love riding out here, and this is one of my favourite spots for times of reflection, which is quite apt really, as today I want to reflect on the last 3 months of owning the R1300 GSA. And first of all, forgive the phone, but there are so many points I want to make in this video, and the old grey matter isn't what it used to be. So I'll kick off. The thing I notice most, actually the precursor, is I've come from an R1300 GS. I skipped out the 1250 GS and GSA, even though I've ridden loads of them. I never owned one. So the biggest thing I noticed on the 1300 GSA was the phenomenal power. I was in Wales recently, and one of my friends I was riding with who has a 1250 GSA, I let him ride the bike, and he said the power was just phenomenal. He couldn't believe how much more power there was compared to his 1250. Which leads me nicely on to my first big surprise I got with the ownership. Doesn't matter how big the bike is or how heavy it is, just a tad under 270 kilograms, and then I load it up with all the bags and whatever else, you know, but I can't believe how well it does with the fuel economy. It doesn't matter how fast I ride it or whether I'm tootling around the countryside like this. Whatever I do, I seem to average 50 miles to the gallon, which I think is amazing for a bike of this size. One of the best things I've done, I believe, is to get the bike fully PPF'd, the plastic film over the tank and lots of other parts, as well as the ceramic coating everywhere else, and the ACF 50. Now, it was quite an expensive process here in Ireland. It cost me €900. But I'm delighted I did that, because even though I'd only had the bike for a month at this stage when I took it to get all of that work done, the amount of rust shown, like on the brake discs and bolts behind the frame, I just couldn't believe how much rust was coming onto the bike already, and neither could the guy who actually did the coating for me. And I'd only had it out once in the rain before I took it into him. So anyway, the guy took away all of the rust, and like I say, everything is covered and coated now. So hopefully that will protect it for a good few years to come anyway. But yeah, I was really surprised at how much rust was creeping in. Now the big one, the automatic shift assistant. As you know, I wasn't happy at all with it. I then took the bike for its first service and got a software update. It has smoothed it out, but I've learned to ride the bike in terms of I know when the bike is going to shift now. I'm still dumbfounded as to why the IMU unit doesn't tell the bike not to shift when you're leaning the bike over on a roundabout or going around a corner. But it's caught me out a few times. It really does unsettle the balance of the bike, especially if you're going fairly slow and it decides to shift. That's not good, and I'm hoping BMW sort that out in the future. However, the flip side of having the ASA is when you're in manual mode and you use the gear lever, it's the smoothest gear change I think I've ever had, and the Street Triple takes unbeaten with that, but this is up there definitely. So it's absolutely seamless. I suppose the big question is, if I was buying the bike again, would I still go with ASA? And I actually would. I would, because of the manual mode. And when you're riding it in road mode, just around the town or slowly around the country lanes, and you put it into D, which is the automatic mode, it really performs beautifully when it's not being ridden hard. However, if you've got a pillion on the back and you're riding in dynamic mode, and you're really pushing the bike, just forget it if you're in the auto gearbox, because your pillion will just be banging off the back of you, and it won't be good for either of you. The next thing I want to talk about is the wind protection. The windscreen is unbelievable. So my 1200 GS was excellent with wind protection. I thought the 1250s were awful. I always got a lot of buffeting off the 1250s, whether it was the GS or the GSA. And I thought maybe that's one of the things which will be overlooked again on the 1300, but I'm delighted to say that there's no buffeting. The wind protection is the best I've ever experienced on any bike. And with the little winglets at the side as well, it just throws everything around you, including the rain. I have been caught out a few times in the rain, and it just throws it all around you. So much so I've started leaving my waterproof suit at home. The other thing over the last few months, I've been riding the bike because I'm so comfortable and confident with the bike. I've been riding it at night, and I'll come on to a long day I had last week as well. And so at night, the only thing I cannot understand on a bike which costs €32,000 in the configuration that I've got here in Ireland, why did they not have backlit switches? I think that's a massive mistake. And where the mode button is, your riding mode button is just below the main power button. Now, I haven't tried it, but there's a couple of times when I've been riding in the dark, I've literally had to pull in and shine my torch on my phone onto the switchgear just to make sure that I'm going to be changing the riding modes rather than the actual power button. I do not want to turn the bike off when I'm riding along. Don't know what will happen there, and I don't want to find out. Now let's just talk briefly about the fit and finish. The quality, the paintwork is absolutely stunning, which is why I wanted to get it protected off the PPF. I couldn't believe how much, just from my knees rubbing against the tank, that it had dulled the paint on the tank. So now that's all been sort of brushed out and covered, like I say, with the PPF wrap. But I just think the quality of the paintwork, even that little fleck as well on the engine casings, it's absolutely stunning. And I just want to keep that protected as long as possible. But even the exterior welds on the tank, I mean, it's a thing of beauty. The fit and finish on the bike it really is top notch. It's what you would expect from BMW. Electronics, let's move on to that. I did think when I was ordering the bike, you know, I don't know how many more times in my life I'll have the opportunity to order a bike like that with everything on. So I went for the kitchen sink. And even when I picked up the bike, I was thinking, I'm not going to use half of this stuff. I definitely don't need it. And then a few weeks ago, the radar cruise control, I believe, saved my life. And since that moment, I always keep it on when I'm riding in traffic. It's like having a second set of eyes. So I love that. The blind spot indicators are absolutely brilliant. And again, it's important to say that you must never rely on all of this stuff. It's to be used as well as riding a motorbike a normal way, like you would always do, looking over your shoulder and everything else. But it really is lovely to have it. And in fact, when I'm out on my other bike, the Street Triple, you have to say I do miss all of that stuff. I do miss the tech. So the comfort, again, on this bike is just unrivaled. Yeah, there was one day last week I was on the bike for 12 hours. There aren't many bikes I can go away on and spend literally 12 hours, not straight, obviously. I stopped for lunch and I stopped for a couple of coffee stops and obviously a fueling stop. But pretty much 12 hours in the saddle, and I arrived home that night in the dark and I was as fresh as a daisy. If I'd done 12 hours in a car, I would have been worse for the wear. For my backside on that seat, I have the comfort seat in the standard height. I didn't want to go for the low seat. Don't need it with the ASA. In fact, ASA I think stands for automatic short arse. Or it should do, because for people vertically challenged like myself, it's a brilliant, brilliant system that, and I can nearly flat foot. Not quite, but I'm very comfortable with that bike and the standard seat. Right, next, BMW really need to sort this luggage system out. I've heard all sorts of reports, even last year on the GS, with the luggage, the central locking on the luggage not opening again. And this year there's been recalls as well because a lot of the luggage systems are leaking water as well, which isn't good. And on top of that, it's an absolute fortune. I think most manufacturers, even Lone Rider as well, whose luggage I've opted for, their stuff is expensive as well, but at least it works. And I think it looks better than the BMW luggage. I don't like the top box BMW have done. Again, that's all down to personal taste. It just sits a little bit too tall, even though my Lone Rider box, people seem to have a huge issue with that. I'll come on to people having huge issues in a moment. But yes, BMW need to sort that luggage out, especially for the money they're charging. Right, issues. People have a massive problem with the looks of this bike. But it's all personal taste. I think it looks absolutely brilliant. But all of the keyboard warriors over the last few months who've taken to my YouTube channel to tell me what they think of the bike, that's fine. I don't give a stuff, but you really do need thick skin if you're going to buy one of these bikes, because people actually do come up, and no matter if you want it or not, you're going to get their opinion, especially if you're doing a bit of YouTube like myself. But like I say, it's only the personal stuff. When people go out of their way to email me and tell me how stupid I am or that I've wasted my money, don't be doing that, lads. It's up to me. I'll spend my money how I want to spend it. And I think this bike is a thing of beauty. I really do think it's an amazing looking bike. And when you see it in the flesh, it's true. So many people say this, but when you see it in the flesh, it's even more beautiful than it does look in the pictures. In fact, that's what won over the deal. I might have mentioned in a previous video, I'd put my money down on a deposit for a 1250 GSA. It was only when I went to do the deal and I saw the 1300 GSA sat next to it. It had just come in that week. I thought, oh my God, I have to have that one. So that's where I am. Engine sound. Just buy some earplugs, because it's absolutely... I won't even... Well, I will go there. It's shocking. Shockingly... The engine sounds broken at the best of times, especially if you're riding in Dynamic Pro. It's like a bag of spanners falling off these cliffs behind me. I've honestly stopped and questioned the sound of the engine a few times and sort of made a conscious effort of looking for warning signs on the screen in front of me, fully expecting it to say engine malfunction. But it's not. It's just the horrible sound of that engine. I didn't mind the sound of the 1200 GS. And again, it's a boxer twin, you know, so it's a familiar sound. But this definitely sounds worse than the 1200 and the 1250. Like I say, it sounds broken. So turn up your music or buy some earplugs. And another gripe I have, I'm on a roll now, is the side stand. It's far too short. The bike leans way over, and you really have to be conscious about where you're coming to a stop, especially if you're going to put the side stand down. Because of the weight of the bike, to try and get it up sometimes, I mean, it's difficult, especially if you're sat on the bike and you're trying to get it up just by doing a body shift. Sometimes I have to stay off the bike, push the bike up so it's vertical, and then take it to a place which is flatter, put the stand down, get back on it. It's just a bit of a palaver, so I am going to buy one of those things to raise the side stand a little bit, but again, that should be addressed with future models. Okay, next, a few of you have asked if I've had any issues. The honest answer is absolutely none, zero. I haven't even had a warning sign, apart from the few times I've nearly ran out of fuel, but that's it. So mechanically, maintenance-free, everything, yeah, just over the moon with it. I would say it's an extremely reliable bike, but I'm not going to say that because I'll jinx it. But the only problem I have, and a huge testament to the bike, in 3 months of ownership, I've put over 4,500 kilometers on it, which is more than I've put on any bike that I've ever owned. I just can't ride the bike enough. I love being out on it. I just love everything about it, even the looks. Which brings me on to my final thing. If I was given the option today, would I buy the bike again? The answer is a resounding 100%. I would. I love everything about it, apart from the things I've listed here. Okay, that's pretty much it for today's video. If you're considering buying one of these, I highly recommend it. If you're on the fence, just do it. I think it's an incredible machine, and this is the first iteration of it, don't forget, so hopefully it'll only get better from now on in. Thanks a million for tuning in, as always. And if you're wondering about these Switchgear cliffs behind me, are actually 3 times taller than the cliffs of Moher. And my BMW GSA is about 3 times more expensive than any other bike I've ever owned. I was trying to find a link there. That's all I could come up with. Sorry about that. Thanks a million for tuning in. I'll be back on YouTube next Saturday at 8 AM. Ride safe, everybody. Have a great week. Dave Perry, Really Good TV at the Switchgear Cliffs.